developing the job descriptions for these roles, we utilize the racial equity planning tool, which, as many of you know, helps us to ensure that we are achieving racial equity with whenever we're developing policy for any and all of our work. There were some concerns raised by the community about the positions that I really do want to address and clarify. I want to be clear that these roles are not funded by BPS. We did our budget process. The city is reallocating the funding for these BPS positions. They'll be available to students throughout the school day and during the after-school hours, evening hours, which really offers greater coverage for additional activities and students who play sports. They will ensure our schools are safe, and obviously that is of utmost importance to me, to our parents, to our team, and we're being proactive about that work. We're really striving to get these jobs posted in the coming weeks so that they can have some immediate impact. I want to just say I'm really grateful to the community for just really sharing thoughts, both at the roundtable, but then in all of the different forums that we collected information, and particularly to our students for sharing their thinking on it and how these positions could really support them. I think this is the kind of input that really helps us to improve how we work with students and make sure that we keep our students first and foremost. And I also want to thank our team, who's just put in so much energy to make sure that we get this right. Dr. DePina, Dr. Tavares, Chief Coakley-Grice, and Chief Granson and Chief Kelton. All of them worked collaboratively on this in order to make this happen. I want to share a few bright spots. First, a big thank you to school committee member Rafa Palanca. We had an amazing bus monitor fair that was held for prospective employees interested in supporting our special education students as bus monitors. Can't thank Rafa enough and the team. They really worked hard to get the word out, door knocking, postering, spreading the word. And it was very clear that they were successful because we, during the fair, over 100 people were submitted for hire through the Office of Human Capital. And we're now working to get them onboarded and hired to as they begin that role of the critical role of bus monitor. We will continue to recruit aggressively because we do need more bus monitors. But I think this was an example of partnership and work together, and was really, truly successful. So we're looking forward to welcoming those new 100 bus monitors, and then we will continue our recruitment activities throughout the spring and summer. I had a chance to attend last week the Edvestors showcase at the district hall. This was the opportunity for our community of educators, nonprofit partners, civic leaders, supporters in general to come together to discuss creative on the ground strategies and solutions that are happening in schools, and to really explore some of the key issues in education. Secretary Tutwiler, who's a former BPSer, shared the keynote remarks at the start of the program, and it was then followed by a panel discussion that really built on a framework that the secretary has laid out to the superintendents and to educators in general, which is heal, stabilize, and transform post-pandemic. And, really the panel represented a range of roles. Many BPS staff were part of it. And it really just gave a very powerful perspective in the district from a school leader lens, from an educator lens, from a family liaison lens, from a central office lens and a partner lens, what it's been like post-pandemic, what are the areas that we see as challenge, and then what are some of the brilliant solutions that are happening to be able to meet our students' needs and see them succeed. So I just wanted to thank, first of all, Marinelle Rosemary, who is the head of Edvestors, but also Secretary Tutwiler, who's so real, as he always is in his comments and connection. And then the Jeremiah Burke dance team provided, some wonderful example of arts in action, for us. and also, all the BPS staff that participated as part of the panel. Also, just a quick shout out for Boston Public Schools. We're going to be joining the city of Boston on One Boston Day. And this will be April 15th, 2023. And this is a day of recognizing the strength, resilience, and generosity demonstrated by Boston residents following the 2013 Boston Marathon, which we all remember. This year, BPS is working alongside its partners in hosting community events for our families to join. And I really just want to encourage everyone to try to check out One Boston Day. Look at the activities. It's www.boston.gov and then /civic -engagement. We'll put it up. It's easy. We'll have it on our website. But this will be an opportunity to really become part of a community engagement effort in symbolizing that 2013 Boston Marathon and how the city came together. Chair, that concludes my report. Happy to take questions, and as always, thanks to the committee for your ongoing support.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'll now open it up to questions and discussion from the committee. Ms. Polanco Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quiero agradecerle por el reporte a la superintendente y también quiero agradecer el apoyo y la apertura que tuvieron muchos de los padres de nuestra comunidad que fueron a aplicar para poder ser monitores de buses.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and also thank you for the report that the superintendent has given. I also want to appreciate all of the support that we gotten for the community and the positions of bus mothers.
Quiero dejarles saber que ha sido uno de los días donde los padres que nunca habían tenido la oportunidad de ir al distrito educativo sintieron que tuvieron una apertura, como una apertura de bienvenida, y se sintieron bien acogidos.
And I just want to say that the parents who never had the opportunity to participate in one of the district's events, and they felt very welcome.
Porque muchas veces nosotros planteamos los problemas, pero no es solo decir que existen los problemas, sino cómo podemos ayudar para tratar de que estos problemas se puedan solucionar o se puedan tener puertas abiertas para otras personas que ayuden con la necesidad de monitores de buses que hay.
And not only this was an opportunity to explain the problems, so that there are problems that exist, but also it was an opportunity to say that we can help and to open doors to other solutions around other needs that we have around bus monitors.
Lo segundo que quiero decir esta noche es que realmente la noticia que acaba de dar la superintendente me pone muy triste sobre las escuelas de exámenes.
And the second thing that I want to say tonight is about the news that the superintendent just shared about the exam schools. It makes me very sad.
Porque estamos hablando de que hay más de 20 estudiantes que no van a tener la oportunidad de estar en las escuelas de examen y tenían expectativa, y tanto ellos como sus familias.
Because this means that we're talking about 20 students that won't
More
be
than
able,
20.
or more than 20 students that won't be able to attend exam schools. And these students and their families, they had these expectations that they were already going to those schools.
En ese sentido, mi pregunta es, que me gustaría saber cuáles son la población de estudiantes más afectados por esta noticia. Creo que escuché 23. Me gustaría saber qué población estudiantil ha sido más afectada con esto, desafortunada noticia.
In that sense, my question is, what kind of population was affected by this? I believe you said there were 23 students who were affected, but what kind of population in that number were affected by this sad news? Yeah.
So through you, Chair, there were 26 students, 4 of whom I believe are coming from charters, so I don't have the demographic information. Of the 22, it really mirrors the district from a demographic, gender perspective. And they were pretty distributed from different schools. We are, have worked today to contact those families. This was eligibility, so the seat was not, it was not given, they did not have a seat, they were eligible. And so there's a combination to determine the seat of the exam and the eligibility of the GPA. So they may or may not have eventually gotten a seat, but they were moved from being eligible to not eligible based on the recalculation. But the group does mirror the district demographic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Elkins?
Yes, thank you for the report. Specifically in relation to the sort of the drive for bus monitors. So where are we now in terms of vacancies and just what's the gap left that we still have to fulfill?
So if Dan Rosengard is on, I will ask him to come on with the specific numbers. My recollection when we last spoke, we still have several hundred to make us complete, like full. But we're doing different strategies. Like for instance, we're going to distribute so that all buses have a monitor. There's certain things we're doing in the IEP process to identify who needs the actual one-to-one versus having a monitor on board. So it may be that some of these numbers come down, but if we were to look at just this year and what we calculated based on need, I believe our delta is still a couple of hundred, but Dan is on, so I know you can answer more specific.
Yep, thank you, Superintendent. And yes, that's correct. To meet every student need, fully to be compliant with IEPs, we're still a little over 200 short. But I think this is really a step that will help us, in particular operationally, be able to do a much better job to get to a point where we can put a monitor on every bus and kind of make sure that we're able to transport every single student to and from school while we continue working really aggressively to kind of replicate what was successful in this hiring fair, to do it again to fill the remaining vacancies.
Thank you for that. And so, yeah, I was going to ask, is the intention to do something like the fair again, or have you been considering other modes of engagement too?
Yes, the intention is to do additional hiring fairs and also continue looking at other strategies where, we're looking at potentially, hopefully getting a billboard up soon, in Boston to advertise the position with the new rates in the new monitors contract, and figuring out better ways to engage the schools and different community groups to really do a all hands on deck approach.
And so the decision to actually create a fair, was that a community driven recommendation to do a fair? Did they identify that they would probably most likely attend a fair? So I'm just curious of that piece, because I'm pretty sure that would give you insight into probably what's the best mode of engagement sort of moving forward.
It was actually, yes, it was an idea that came out of one of the city council hearings in the fall, where a number of families of special education students spoke at the hearing and shared some of their ideas to better reach the community, and this was one of them. So we appreciated that and hope to build on it.
I think we'll consult with school committee member Garcia to give us Polanco Garcia to give us some advice on it, because I think being in close contact with the community and parents led to just new ways of us thinking about how to be able to engage and reach people that we hadn't been able to reach. So you know, I think it was such a positive experience overall.
Mr. O'Neill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, my profound thanks to fellow member, Ms. Polanco Garcia, for the work that she did in helping to organize that fair, showing the power of community organizing, but also, you know, we talk about walk the walk, not just talk the talk, and Ms. Polanco Garcia really walked the walk there, and organizing with the community and raising interest in the bus monitor position. So thank you for that. Muchas gracias, Ms. Polanco Garcia. With regard to the exam school issue, I am trying to choose my words most carefully. This body has spent a lot of time on the exam school issue over the past few years, disproportionate to the number of seats in the exam schools relative to our overall district. It's fair to say the chair has pointed out many times she wished that we spent the amount of time on the other seats that we had spent on exam school. Nevertheless, it was the cause of a lot of work over the past couple of years and a lot of public attention. It was a specific, not only request of this body, but a requirement of this body when we passed the exam school policy, that we actually have an external party look at the admissions, because we were that concerned, and we expressed it publicly. We were that concerned about, with the changes that we were putting in place and the multi-year changes of, now it was going to be averages, now we were adding a science requirement, now we were adding the MAP assessment tool back in, how we were going to coordinate that across the entire network of not just our schools, 40% of which have some degree of autonomy, and we have all different levels of what's considered a course description, that type of thing, but also our charter schools, private schools, parochial schools, because all residents of Boston are eligible to apply for our exam schools. We were deeply concerned about problems arising in that process. And so we specifically put in the requirement that we have an outside auditing process on it. And to hear that, in fact, that secondary source of verification has not worked is deeply disappointing, because folks never used to get a letter that they were eligible to apply for schools. But for many of our families in this city, across our entire city, it is a cause for happiness when they get a letter that they were accepted to either Latin School, Latin Academy, or the John D. O'Brien School of Math and Science. And impacting that in a day and age when we're working so hard to improve transparency and improve trust with our parents and our families and our community members on such an important issue is just a self-inflicted wound that I am astonished at, plain and simple. And I just have to express that, because I know our communities expect us. How are we not expressing dissatisfaction with that? To me, it raises the question of, this body also passed a policy several years ago, a risk management policy, that we specifically called out, and we wanted an internal audit position within BPS. And then the pandemic hit, and there was, I hesitate to use the word excuse, because that may seem difficult to use, but there was reason after reason why that position has not been filled. I call on the district again to reread that policy that this body passed and look to implement it as soon as possible, because we need checks and balances within our system. And if people believe their work is going to be looked at and checked, I believe There may just be a little bit extra effort to begin with to make sure that it is right. And Superintendent, I am sensitive to the fact that we put in place a challenging and comprehensive change to the system, and that change takes time, and that mistakes happen. And, you know, my wife has always trained me to assume good intent, and I absolutely do here. But this impacts families, and this impacts our students and their hope and belief and faith in our system, and we have to do better, plain and simple.
Yeah. So I agree fully with everything you said, Committee Member O'Neill. I think the risk management office is operational. We have filled the lead position for it. But I think one of the things we've seen is that there's multiple areas of the organization that really need to have our own internal ability to monitor. And so this type of particular monitoring, which has to do with calculations and formula and policy interpretation, that will be something that we need to build out as part of the risk management office that was not necessarily envisioned in the original. That said, I think when we have things that are extremely high stakes, we've seen in this example where one internal check and one external check just simply isn't enough. And so I think, this is certainly for me, causing me to coming into this, with a policy that's been created, that we need to look at where are there other gray areas that we may need to look at to make very clear how we're interpreting things, how we're measuring things, what those calculations are going to be, so it's fully transparent. Additionally, given the high stakes nature of it, this is the type of thing where you have multiple internal layers and multiple external layers that are also checking it. So going forward, that will be the case, and that will be put in place. Right now we're, working on this particular issue, and I think we worked with the city auditor's office because we wanted to have it validated external to the BPS, and so we do feel confident in the work that's being done now, in the calculations that will be released. Again, in the 9th and 10th grade, it's more just a delay of time as opposed nothing had been released on them. But again, it's causing us to delay a few days getting them that information in order to make sure we double check and triple check everything. But going forward, we will communicate, and I believe we have in May an update to the body on exam school in general. And so we will fold into that going forward what our recommendation is for, given the high stakes nature of it, the additional safeguards that we intend to put in place for this. But I agree with you. There's no excuses. There is accountability to this, both internal and external. That is how, those are the steps we have to take to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable when we make significant error.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for your eloquent way of putting this, because as you know, and I've been having conversations with superintendent and others throughout the week as this information has become available. And my only reaction personally was heartsick, that I could not believe that we were in this situation, knowing how important this work is to our families. And the idea that we have said you're eligible, and even if it were only one child or two children, to go back and saying it's changed, it's not fair. And I said, had I had the opportunity, I would have loved to have joined public comment this evening to express my concerns and dismay with this. I mean, I know we, in moving towards an effort of more equity and opportunity, we have created a very complicated process. However, all schools, this community is looking to have opportunity to join our schools. we need to be very clear and consistent as to what each and every school, public, private, whoever, needs to be able to provide us with the information in a way that makes it equitable to calculate. You know, the grades need to be the grades. We know grades are subjective, and I know our equity, grading policy is something that we're hoping will help us to be able to be more consistent with grading. But making sure we are utilizing, similar course structure across the district, quarters versus trimesters, whatever, that I really believe, even though with all the autonomy so many of our schools have, I feel like the district has to step up and say, this is what we need, when we need it, how we need it. And if we don't get it, then we need to allow families to know that their school is out of compliance, or that, we don't have what we need. But we've all got to own this together. And so I know getting the data piece right is one piece of it, but there are other parts of this policy also that we need to make sure that we are implementing correctly, because every single one of our kids counts. Every single one of our families deserves to get the right information the first time.
Yeah. Through you, Chair, I would second that. I think anytime we make a policy that has a that has an implementation plan with it, it's very important to look at any gray areas of that implementation and work it out. And so I think that is work to be done, that we will be looking to make some recommendations when we come before you, in May. But that way there is a consistency. And, to your point, I think, one of the difficulties with like a lot of change of leadership is we end up with 119 schools as opposed to a district. And that's not helpful when we're trying to implement policy of how, what are science courses, what are history courses, these are the things that evolve in that process. So there's certainly some work to be done here on this, but there also needs to be safeguards, multiple safeguards, because anytime computers make mistakes, humans make mistakes. And so what you have to do when you have something that's very high stakes is you have to insulate it with multiple layers to catch those mistakes. And so I think in a perfect world, the one internal and the one external should have been enough, but clearly we have proven it wasn't. And so we will insulate it further to make sure that going forward, there's multiple sets of eyes on both internal and external to be able to catch anything that's a human error, as well as clarify areas that are gray relative to calculation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. If there is no further discussion, I'll now entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's report. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Ms. Sullivan, will you please call the roll?
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Alkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cadet Hernandez, Ms. LaPera, Ms. Polanco Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Tran, Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
The report is approved unanimously.
Thank you. Before we move on to public comment, I'd like to invite our student representative, Diego Maida, to present his update. Mr. Maida?
Hi, could we,
Okay.
yeah, hi, so thank you, Chair Robinson. As you guys know, my name is Diego Mata, the student school committee representative. Today I'll be giving the Boston Student Advisory Council update. We continue to meet weekly on Tuesdays from 4 to 6, and now Fridays from 3:30 to 5:30. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes. So most recently, we hosted a youth-led town hall event focused on safety in Boston Public Schools. Thank you. We'd like to send a thank you to Dearborn for hosting us, and to the youth organizations who came out to support our effort. In small groups, we focused on the effects of social media, peer pressure, home environment, and relationships and their effects on violence and safety. We are working to take what we heard in town hall and provide district leadership with a formal recommendation of solutions from the town hall. Can we go to the next slide, please? So our subcommittees are continuing to meet weekly. Each group will have an end of year product. As you can see with adultism, the subcommittee is currently interviewing students and adults to understand that and try and make a workshop. And the code of conduct is hopefully at the end of the year going to make a workshop that's going to be held throughout school communities. The participatory budget meeting is going to do a block party at the end of the school year, and the mental health and social media subcommittee will be planning on incorporating mental health stations in our schools. So can we go to the next slide? Okay, so some of the upcoming events we have are right now we're partnering on with the community Ramadan iftar to make a community Ramadan iftar event on Friday, April 14th from 7 to 9, and from 8 to 9. BSAC students will host a youth space for Muslim young people. Also on Tuesday, May 2nd, BSAC is partnering with other BPS departments to host Bite Night, a computer science and STEM night open to all BPS students in grades 6 through 12. Lastly, this summer, it'll be the second summer that BSAC will host a 6-week summer leadership program. We're still working out the details. Additionally, the Division of Student Support Services will also have a menu of summer programming being offered to keep BPS young people engaged throughout the summer. And hopefully, at the next update, I'll have more details about this. Anyway, that is my report. Yeah. Any
Great.
questions?
Thank you. And thank you to all the BSAC students for their advocacy and dedication. And the committee looks forward to future updates. Any comments, questions from members before we move forward?
Yes, thank you. And just thank you for the great work that you're leading, Diego. And if you could you just speak a little bit more about the leadership sort of academy, and sort of, is it to help sort of funnel more people within BSAC to look for positions of leadership? Just a little bit more context.
Diego, you're muted.
Sorry, guys. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I didn't do it last year, but I have sort of an idea of what it is. So it's kind of like a continuation, but a little bit different. Because it's going to be in the summer, it's going to be more time, and so we can get hopefully more work done. But I think we should ask Denise to elaborate better than I can. Oh, okay. So we're gonna apparently also do some community service during the summer as well.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi, Diego. Thank you. Yes, so just to kind of elaborate a little bit, last summer we were able to host a 6-week summer leadership program for about 25 BPS students that was focused on restorative justice and healing. We also focused on community building and various aspects of leadership, as well as working with community or other youth serving community organizations. So we're hoping to replicate some of that work again this summer. It might be a little bit smaller than it has been in years past because space is just an issue throughout the city for youth serving programs. But our hope is to serve at least 15 to 20 young people during this program. And typically the students do go from summer to school year. And so we do get that continuity of working with students through the summer and then having them come in during the school year as well.
Mr. O'Neill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Maida, thank you for your presentation. Always delighted to hear an update on what's going on in BSAC. And I was struck, as Dr. Alkins was, about the leadership piece. I'm so glad we talked about that in more detail. I was also struck by the committee work. And I'm intrigued by how BSAC decided on those 4 subjects. And I bring it up for 2 reasons. One, student input is critical, right? And student input has been invaluable in a number of ways in policy that the district has made and this board has made, for example, around code of conduct. BSAC's involvement over the years in the revised code of conduct and then the app that BSAC put together for students to understand their rights and responsibilities on the code was critical in that. And so I applaud you for continuing to look at it. And I stress how important the value of student voice is. So please pass that message along to your fellow BSAC members of we listen and we want the input. And the second piece of that is I noticed the focus on mental health. And that is so critical to get BSAC's leadership and guidance on that issue because no one is closer to how students are doing with their social and emotional well-being right now than students and fellow students, right? We really need your guidance and input through BSAC on these issues, and the district does. And I know we are awaiting any day now the National Center for CDC, Center for Disease Control, does the national survey that is it's the 2-year lag time. So they're going to be coming out this spring with the survey from 2021 that really focuses in on students' emotional health and mental health and mental well-being. But we know there are troubling signs, right? And so BSAC, there's a real opportunity for BSAC to play a leadership role on this, to this committee, meaning the school committee, and to the district overall. And so I'm applauding you for doing that as one of the 4 subcommittees or committees. And when you talked about having mental health stations in each school, I'm intrigued by what you mean by that. And just want to encourage BSAC to really focus in on this and understand the value of your student voice, how it is taken seriously, and how you can help us on this critical issue right now.
So I'm actually gonna pass this one off to Denise because I am not in that subcommittee. So I think Denise might have more info than I would have on what
Sure. So the subcommittees, some of them have come kind of organically from student student voice and student perspective. So the adultism group specifically, the mental health group specifically, the participatory budgeting group was kind of an opportunity that came to us, and we had this additional money to spend. And so the participatory budgeting team and the mental health team have been working closely together on really just ways for young people to have fun and really enjoy themselves. And so as a part of this BSAC block party that we're hoping to have, and the young people have been working really hard on, is to have mental health kind of stations throughout the event. So spaces where folks can write positive affirmations, spaces where people can do art, spaces where people can connect with each other. And so that has been an important part of the mental health subcommittee work, as well as working on professional development ways that our social workers and our counselors can build, those really strong and authentic and real relationships with our young people. And so the mental health group has, thrown a bunch of different ideas out there. And so I think they're still trying to figure out what sticks. But the idea around mental health stations in each school, I think our young people are still trying to figure out exactly what it is that they need as well, right? When we talk about mental health supports, it's not always just having that go-to person, but there are other aspects of it. And so the group is really working to figure out, what are the important levers that young people really need in school spaces beyond people to talk to that can really make a difference in their mental health. And that might include social media campaigns, that might include apps where young people can connect with each other in a positive way. I think they're still exploring what that means for them.
Thank you. Well, I just want to affirm the value of the voice and the desire to hear from those folks who are involved in our classrooms every single day on what their advice is. So I hope you share that back to the committee working on it. Thank you.
Yes, and I have also connected with the chair and some other folks that some of the subcommittee leaders would be happy to come and talk for a little bit more in depth about the work that they've been doing. So these committees are headed by young people on BSAC, and they would be happy to share a little bit more in depth, because as Diego says, he does sit here, he does sit on our code of conduct committee as well.
Please slow down, Denise, slow down a bit.
Oh yeah, so he does sit on kind of multiple committees. So those young people are happy to come and share a little bit more in depth about what they've been exploring in their subcommittees.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Alkins?
Oh, no, thank you for that clarification. I'm also wondering how BSAC is able to also bring in on not exclusively or to sort of take over the conversation or anything, but really to help frame some of their ideas in a facilitative way. So for example, thinking about sort of the mental health stations that you were talking about, to bring in an expert or two who can actually probably speak to some of the practices that either have been done in different contexts to help really help push the conversation from a space of idea building to action and activism, even to some extent, if that's what the students feel that is the best direction for it. But I'm also thinking that sometimes it's, you don't necessarily have to replicate the wheel if it already exists. And so I'm wondering just how much of that crosstalk that BSAC gets to do.
So we definitely have folks like come in and workshop with the young people. We're working with the some folks from the Shaw Foundation right now. They've been supporting our mental health group specifically. And that's kind of where the idea of the app and social media aspects have come in. But I think that work has somewhat morphed, right? Perhaps the young people were like, oh, that's not quite it. And so over time, they've kind of moved direction towards some workshopping and some other ways. But we are completely open to having folks come in and work with our young people. They love having folks come in and do engaging workshops with the young people. And so if you have any ideas or any community connections, I welcome that information and that support, and would love to explore that with the committee and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you. I just have a quick question. What percentage of the schools are now represented on BSAC?
I don't have a percentage, but we have 20 of our high schools or secondary schools represented. It is difficult to onboard young people at different parts of the year, and because all of our young people are paid through the city of Boston, there are certain deadlines, right, and certain things that we have to meet. And so it can kind of create a space where some folks are paid and some folks are not paid. And so we haven't really taken on new young people since we started. And as I've shared with you, Chair, I'm the full-time staff person that supports BSAC. We're happy to be bringing on a coordinator very soon, so we will have additional capacity. But obviously that does affect how many young people I can have with me
Right.
one time. So right now we're at 40 young people from 20 different Boston Public schools. And so, of course, looking to recruit strategically for the summer from our schools that we haven't had representation from. And that's some of the work that I'm doing right now. And then also working as soon as the school year starts to do that recruitment in schools as well, to make sure we have full representation on the council for next school year.
That's great. And something else, and I know, again, this is an issue around staffing. As many of our high schools become 7 to 12s, how are we beginning to work with our 7th and 8th graders in terms of, I don't want to call it BSAC Junior, but that introductory stages so that they get the full benefit of being engaged and, hopefully gaining more opportunity and commitment to taking on some of these roles as they move into high school.
Yeah, it's definitely on my mind and on my radar. I know that some of my colleagues have, been doing work around transformative mentoring and academic mentoring in the middle school space, in our middle grade space. Many of our middle grades or our 7 to 12s do have student government representatives from the lower grades that sit on their student governments as well. But I think it's really, building out our capacity and building out our programming so that it fits what middle graders need in terms of leadership. And then that there's that continuity and that continuation of moving on to represent your school as you move into those upper grades. So it's definitely on my mind and on my radar. And I think it's a great opportunity. I mean, last summer we took rising 9th graders. So we had 14-year-olds that were going into their freshman year of high school. So we were able to do that with the flexibility that Success Link also gave us with hiring younger people last year. So, so now we can hire 14 to 18-year-olds and pay them for their time, which wasn't the case in the past. So I just see opportunities, just coming along as we go. And again, as we build out our staff and, build out our model, that we will be able to incorporate working with our younger grades, whether that is, as you said, some sort of like junior BSAC or, some way that we can bring that leadership conversation to our middle grades, which I know is happening in those spaces, but how can we support it on the central office side as well?
Great. Thank you so much. And again, Mr. Maida, thank you for all of your work, and particularly as BSAC is in this rebuilding phase of its existing. thank you again for all of the work that you and the other BSAC students do. And we look forward to your updates in the future. Thanks. We'll now move on to general public comment. Ms. Sullivan?
Thank you, Chair. The public comment period is an opportunity for parents, caregivers, students, and concerned parties to make brief presentations to the school committee on pertinent school issues. Questions on specific school matters are not answered at this time, but may be the subject of later discussion by the committee. But may be referred to the superintendent for a later response. Questions on specific policy matters are not answered at this time, but may be the subject of later discussion by the committee. We have 14 speakers this evening. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak, and I'll remind you when you have 30 seconds remaining. Those who require interpretation services will receive an additional 2 minutes. Speakers may not reassign their time to others. Large groups addressing the same topic are encouraged to consolidate their remarks or choose a spokesperson to provide testimony. Written testimony is appreciated and encouraged. Please state your name, affiliation, and what neighborhood you are from before you begin. Please direct your comments to the chair and refrain from addressing individual school committee members or district staff. When I call your name, please raise your hand virtually in Zoom. Also, please make sure you're signed into Zoom with the same name that you used to sign up for public comment. That will allow us to identify you when it's your turn to testify. We'll begin this evening with Michael Heischman, followed by Carmen Arias Ortiz, Catherine Vitale, Suleika Soto, and Courtney Feely Karp. If you could please raise your hands. Mr. Heischman?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Mike Heischman, Beja, Dorchester. Wonderful things are happening in some of our schools. On March 25th, the Boston Teachers Union, Boston Education Justice Alliance, and many other organizations created a wonderful family-to-family conference attended by students, parents, and caregivers, educators, and community members. I attended the community schools workshop and was very impressed. The school department and the YMCA has a grant which has brought more resources into about 12 schools. You are once again coming up with a facility improvement plan. Every school should become a community school. I was blown away by the restorative justice workshop. Everyone sat in a circle and spoke while everyone listened. Instead of investing more in metal detectors, more policing, and using punishment and fear to control our children, invest in this powerful tool. In the words of our ancestor, Mel King, love is the question and love is the answer. Restorative justice is part of our answer. It has increasingly becoming clear to me that our superintendent and Mayor's Wu's appointed school committee are complicit in the retreat from the BPS becoming an anti-racist institution. Before taking office, Ms. Skipper on August 24th had received a letter from 15 high-ranking retired BPS educators of color protesting against the targeting, harassment, and firing of anti-racist Black and Brown central office leaders. The public did not know about this until 3 whistleblowers, including myself, notified the community in October during public testimony. Ms. Skipper is in charge of the investigation. She selected the investigator and defined the parameters of the investigation. Normally speaking, this would be seen as an outrageous conflict of interest. For Mayor Wu's appointees, this is acceptable. It is now April 12th. Nothing new was reported today on this so-called investigation. Mayor Wu's appointed school committee continues to enable Ms. Skipper's cover-up. As I testified at our last meeting, the comparison of Dr. Caselius's organizational chart with Ms. Skipper's is another example of the retreat from equity. Under the leadership of Dr. Granson, the chief of equity and strategy, with the active support of Dr. Caselius, the Community Equity Roundtable had held 39 meetings. Since Ms. Skipper took office, there has only been 4 meetings. Why? Dr. Granson is still the leader of the equity office. Look at the changes in the organizational charts. Dr. Granson's office has been moved, his position
Thank you,
demoted,
Mr. Heisman.
almost done, and his budget cut. Equity has been defunded while white supremacy has been promoted. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carmen Arias Ortiz.
All right. Good evening, Superintendent Skipper and members of the school board. My name is Carmen Ortiz. I'm better known as Carmen Arias by my Boston Arts Academy family. I'm part of the third graduating class of Boston Arts Academy. I do not currently live in Boston. I married in 2016 and moved to Cary, North Carolina. However, I did grow up in South Boston, and I'm a product of Boston Public Schools. My entire family and many of my closest friends still call Boston home. While discussing the naming of the Boston Arts Academy Theater is not part of today's agenda, this issue is too important for a one-day discussion. It is too important to me and many other of my Boston Arts Academy classmates to not start the conversation now. We all know that it's human nature to desire honor and recognition. However, we must remember to give honor to whom honor is due. As many of you are in a position of power, when you are in a position of power, you're tasked with making important decisions. And we have a responsibility to be objective and thoughtful in the decisions that we make, not only because it is the right thing to do, but also because it speaks of who we are. And more importantly, it models integrity to the Boston Public School students and families. I do understand that this is not always easy or comfortable, as sometimes the right decision differs from that is popular or expected. Today, I want to challenge you, members of the school board, to commit to honoring those women whom honor is due, to honoring two women who worked sacrificially for many years for a vision that many could yet to see, for the vision of an arts high school in Boston, for making Boston Arts Academy a reality. Without the vision and the hard work of Linda Nathan and Carmen Torres, there would be no Boston Arts Academy today. So I ask that we please put politics aside and do the right thing, not just because Carmen and Nathan are the only two people who deserve to be recognized for what Boston Arts Academy is today, but also because I personally can attest that it was truly a privilege to attend high school while they were there. Their love and commitment for their students was genuine, and their leadership was second to none. Again, my ask today is that when this issue is on your agenda and you're tasked with making a decision, you choose to honor these two incredible women who impacted the lives of countless students in Boston. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Catherine Vitale.
Hi, my name is Catherine Vitale. I live in Dorchester, and I'd like every parent listening to this to ask themselves when and why we as Americans allowed it to become normal to drop our kids off to strangers for 30 to 50 hours a week. It has become more and more evident over the past 3 years that by sending our kids to these government indoctrination centers, we're making them vulnerable to a world of abuse. We've allowed these strangers to force muzzles on their faces and restrict their breathing. We've allowed them to isolate our children, causing a massive wave of mental health issues. From vaccine clinics to mental health screenings, we've turned schools into health centers. Schools are supposed to teach academics, not screen, diagnose, and treat mental illness. Parents, I implore you to remove your children from these schools and find alternative ways to educate, because the direction they're going is real bad, real fast. I could go on forever about why and how to homeschool your children, and if you'd like more information, please sign up at wethepeopleofma.org. As far as the school committee goes, what extra rights and privileges have you been awarded that you are not required to have these meetings in person? A virtual meeting is in no way comparable to a real meeting. You have the ability to lock us out, mute us, and kick us out of a virtual meeting, which you wouldn't be able to do if we were in person. You also have the chat disabled. If we were here in person, you wouldn't be able to stop us from communicating with each other. Unless we're on the panel like I am right now, we're not able to see who else is here, if the whole school committee's here, how many members of the public are here, and we're not able to communicate with each other because you have the chat disabled. These virtual meetings are discussing violation of parental rights in our US and Massachusetts constitutions. You're not special, and you all should be required to meet in person and come face to face with parents who you're supposed to be accountable to. Stop being cowards and return to in-person meetings. I also want to ask for the record what the youth health survey is, why kids are taking it, why you are asking children about their genders and their sexual orientations, and proposing ideas to them about killing themselves. I think that every parent should be aware of this, and these surveys should not be given in schools. It's unacceptable. What's happening in schools is disgusting, and you all should be ashamed of yourselves. That's all.
Our next speaker is Zuleika Soto.
A little dark, but it's okay, as long as you guys could hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Zuleika Soto, and I am a BPS graduate, the parent of 2 BPS students, and a resident of the South End. Words are good, intention is important, thoughts are important, but what are we actually doing to repair the harm done? While the racial equity planning tool is intended to address the persistent inequities that impact our students with the highest needs and has good words, intentions, and thoughts, the desired outcomes are never explicitly framed to address the root causes, particularly for students in communities with the greatest needs, such as Black, Latinx, Asian, special education students, and multilingual learners. For example, comparing the Racial Equity Planning Tools rubric to the Community Connections Coordinator's memo presented at yesterday's Community Equity Roundtable fails to actually answer the questions. There is no racial equity analysis with disaggregated data included and fails to mention the terms Black, Latinx, Asian, special education, and multilingual learners in any of its answers. A solution would be to actually answer the questions and follow the rubric, and for this committee to carefully look at these proposals before pushing a yes vote in the name of equity. In my opinion, parent engagement has also been utterly disrespectful and at times intimidating at both the school and district level this year. This year, in too many district meetings, supposedly intended to be conversations and actually engage parents and community, the meetings have in fact consisted of parents being talked at, addressed with pre-written scripts by a large team of district employees that are texting each other, and where many answers provided to important questions lack substance and data to back them up, as in this case with this committee. Furthermore, it is disrespectful for the administration and BPS to utilize vice principals and district level employees to call Latino parents before testifying about their experience before this committee. This is an example of witness intimidation. Fortunately, those brave families still arrived to express their thoughts. Is the district trying to hold administration accountable for what parents say at the district level when there is a lack of accountability for parent engagement at the school level? There are still many schools lacking interpretation during school site and parent council meetings, or let alone that submit required paperwork for Title I, which all the schools in BPS are Title I schools. To actually start to repair the harm, BPS should transform how it goes about parent engagement by first starting to implement shared decision-making and school site council manuals. Follow Title I requirements for engagement and do the paperwork. Look at school climate data to fix and start actually holding principals accountable for engaging parents and hold yourself accountable as well. We need an elected school committee. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Courtney Feely Karp, followed by Edith Bazile, Ruby Reyes, Michelle Carmel, and Deirdre Manning. If you can please raise your hands virtually in Zoom. Courtney Feely Karp.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. Thank you, Chair Robinson, Superintendent Skipper, and members of the school committee. I thank you again for making time, and I don't want to waste too much time in this, but I do want to sort of give sort of a response to one of the prior commenters. I, for one, fully appreciate the opportunities that online remote meetings have as an accessibility feature through remote attendance, as well as interpretation channels and other things that would be much more difficult to provide in person. And I appreciate and wholly consistent with the continuation of law to allow these things to happen. And I appreciate the opportunity that you continue to do so. And so just wanted to provide a second, possibly more sane voice on that front. I also wanted to just a nod to the prior commenter, Suleika, and all of the things that she just said around a lot of the needs that we are all feeling. And I'm here to talk tonight about our community, our school, but I do think a lot of the systemic comments she made are applicable in our instance, as well as broader, and I do want to amplify her important thoughts and comments. You know, I think it comes as no surprise, and I understand I was late logging in. We had a little incident with dinner that had to be remade. But I understand there was some mention of a plan for the Henderson, so I apologize if there was some conversation that I'm not yet aware of. But we're here tonight. I think it's probably of no surprise because really, frankly, you know, we continue to see no response from the administration at our school. In fact, seems to be trending in the wrong direction. Many of us have reached out to the district office, trying to find other avenues to have licensing, job listing postage, remove a sub-separate listing. But we have not seen that happen. We have also seen that there have been postings added for things like resource rooms, which for anyone who's in the special education world knows that is the first step in the wrong direction when you are doing inclusion for real and not in name only. And so the signs are there. And I think it's important to remember that our leadership is an interim appointment. The school parent council and the school community did not have a say in this appointment. We do not have any knowledge yet how long this appointment will last. We understand there are unique circumstances around this particular leadership role, but we feel that it is important, and to echo some of the comments earlier from the BSEC community and the importance of leadership work and restorative justice, that there are harms in our community that need to be repaired. And if it is the decision of the superintendent to continue with the leadership at our school, that we would ask that specific interventions be done in a restorative way to come help us repair the harms at our school. And we are, you know, since the last time we were here, there's been no.
Excuse me, Ms. Feely Karp.
And we are here again because we are looking for more direct intervention before the school year is out, while these important hirings are taking place and shaping the future of our school.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Edith Bazile.
Good evening, and thank you so much. Madam Chair, Black families in the greater Boston area are increasing, but flee BPS at the highest rate. Why? Black students are concentrated in underperforming schools, denied access to high-performing schools, exam schools, and AP courses. Black students are disproportionately placed in segregated special education classes and alternative education programs and denied equitable access to vocational programming. Black students are disproportionately assigned to underfunded, understaffed, under-resourced schools that are disproportionately closed. Parents, students, and leaders who speak out about the closures are ignored, like the beloved P.A. Shaw. Black and brown leaders are sidelined, censored, silenced, and pushed out. BPS currently employs around 78 safety officers and invested $30 million in metal detectors and cameras. Violence prevention specialist positions were rebranded as community connector positions, which, despite what is said, are still safety positions which will surveil and target Black and brown students. That's more than 100 approximately safety positions and only an increase of 11 restorative justice positions. The research says a heavy focus on surveillance does not increase safety. It reduces student engagement, and we know we have a student absenteeism problem. If the district used the racial equity planning tool, you'd already know that. But of course, it was not used. This is not the vision of the Honorable Mel King that he had for Boston students, which he loved. It is also not the vision he had when he said, quote, "For all they've talked about improving city schools, we've had a system of low expectations," end of quote. That continues to be the problem. Superintendent Skipper said the district is working tirelessly to improve work worthy of Mel King tonight. I asked, where is the evidence? Every school does not have literacy coaches and reading specialists. BPS has a homegrown early childhood curriculum focus that is not evidence-based, with more than a decade of failing results for Black, Latino, EL, and students with disabilities. When Black students struggle with literacy, they're more likely to be placed in a segregated special ed placement where they really receive reading interventions. There are far too many non-certified teachers and hundreds of teacher vacancies, yet BPS hires more central office positions that are completely disconnected from what school leaders and teachers need to support students. Why is OMME been without a leader? Where are the Black and bilingual teachers that BPS needs? The ESSER funds are just about gone, which states funding is not the problem. Vision and commitment are. Where's the focus on college and vocational options for our Black and brown students? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ruby Reyes.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruby Reyes, and I'm a Dorchester resident and the Executive Director of the Boston Education Justice Alliance. As we approach Superintendent Skipper's 8th month on the job, just 3 short months from the end of the school year, BPS families have continued to wait for action-oriented leadership, transparency, community engagement, and equity. Superintendent Skipper is failing to implement the changes that BPS families continue to desperately need. BPS parent groups have been asking for better communication and authentic community engagement that thoughtfully incorporates the voices of parents, students, and educators. Claiming a commitment to family engagement, BPS parents found a calendar listing for conversations with Mary. Notifications had been sent to district parent groups. Notifications had not been sent out to district parent groups or through the BPS weekly update, which has not gone out since December 2022. Parent groups shared it with their school networks, only for the meeting to be abruptly canceled minutes before its flopped launch. In terms of community connections positions, the main concern is the student information sharing will not be taking place. In 2018, a child was deported because BPS information was being shared with the Boston Police Department. We know that there are a few controls, internal and external, as evident with the most recent exam school issue. Clearly, BPS central office cannot guarantee that protocols are insulated. Superintendent Skipper's excuses and deflections cannot justify the possibility of deporting yet another student. In the budget process, Beja urged for more detail and transparency. The BPS budget should not be about covering up Superintendent Skipper's failures, such as an executive staff too lazy to create detailed budgets or be able to provide answers to critical questions. The budget process is a place where resources can be distributed to areas, schools, and students with the most need as a real commitment to equity. The budget needs to be about meeting the needs of students and families. Even more disturbing, though, is that when parents signed up to give public testimony at the school committee meeting on March 22nd, some of those parents received calls from BPS administrators, including Deputy Superintendent of Equity and Community and Family Advancement, Anna Tavares. These administrators were asking what these parents were going to give testimony about. BPS should not be seeking intel from impacted families or intimidating parents into not sharing their voices. BPS needs to be meeting their needs on a systemic-wide level and individual basis, not seeking a heads up from families. The implication is that principals and administrators are being held responsible for what parents say in their testimony, which further feeds the already decaying culture of fear rather than the supported team Superintendent Skipper claims to be fostering. We are only 3 short months away from the end of the school year. The few accomplishments we have seen are those that have been fought for by parents and advocates. Where are the results? Superintendent Skipper has coasted through a school year with families having little to show for it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michelle Carmel.
Hi, thank you very much for having me here to speak in the public comment section. I'm glad for the opportunity to do it. I was here last month testifying about the Henderson Inclusion School. I told you about classrooms in our school that don't have properly credentialed special educators. What I didn't tell you last month is that I have a child with a disability for whom the school has been transformative. We have great educators and staff in the building working hard for our children every day. I know the power of inclusion done well, and I believe that my child deserves to graduate from this school. The parents who testified alongside me last month are the same parents who are constantly volunteering our time to build community and support the school in any way we can. I want to be really clear that we are not trying to tear down our school. We're trying to bring its problems to light to get real support from the district and the mayor's office to build it back to its former state. Our current students deserve that, and our educators deserve that. Both before and since the last school committee meeting, our school has struggled with both internal and external dysfunction. For example, for the last 43 days since the 1st of March, the Henderson Inclusion School has posted misleading job listings for teachers in substantially separate settings. This is where students with disabilities are sequestered outside of the general classroom setting, which is the polar opposite of inclusion. I alerted the school administration 19 days ago about the misleading listings. After 5 emails, a Zoom call, and phone call, the misleading postings persist. The problem is being blamed on communication issues with and delays within the Office of Human Capital, but it also speaks to the disarray in our building that's happening right now. It shouldn't have been me, a parent, who noticed the problem weeks after the problem had originated and started the initiative to get this fixed. Right now, at this moment, the incorrect listings are still posted, advertising for teachers in a substantially separate setting in our inclusion school. It's imperative that we correct these to ensure that the Henderson attracts qualified, inclusion-oriented candidates to interview for these positions. It's prime hiring time now. It has been prime hiring time since the 1st of March, and we're losing time here. What I'm wondering is how far up the BPS administrative chain does our community have to go before we reach a person who actually has enough power to pick up the phone and make something as simple as editing jobs actually happen? I implore you as members of the school committee and representatives of the mayor's office to identify the person who has the power to help the Henderson and remind them of their responsibility, because the Henderson needs real concrete support. We don't need a plan for the 23-24 school year. We need help now with concrete issues in our school. I also want to mention that members of our board. I'm here as an individual. I'm not here representing
Carmel.
my the parent council.
Excuse me, Ms. Carmel. I'm afraid your 3 minutes are past. Thank you.
I think.
Our next speaker is Deirdre Manning, followed by Sean Nelson, Felicia Parzik, Jess Manna, Bethany Moffey, and Shannon Dendy Balbin. If you could please raise your hands virtually in Zoom. Deirdre Manning.
Hello, everybody can hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Great, thank you. Thank you to the superintendent and the school committee members for the opportunity to speak before you. I was one of 5 parents who spoke before the school committee last month about concerns impacting the Henderson community, most notably for families with children with atypical abilities. I appreciate the recent announcement that I heard at the beginning of the meeting that the central office is making an effort to address some of the concerns raised in the last meeting and recently published in the Boston Globe. I would like to say that this effort needs to include families, and initiatives to reach them must be expansive. Just to give you an example of why I believe this is important, before the last meeting, I reached out to a family who I knew their son was not receiving the type of services that he's supposed to. And I asked them if they would be able to speak before the school committee during the public comment period. Unfortunately, the mom had to work, and the son requires a very long series of interventions every evening, and the father needed to do those. So this family and many others who are faced with challenges with children who have health concerns and intellectual challenges can't participate in a way that others can. I feel it's important that the school committee and the superintendent understand that we need to stand up and do things for these families. Their lives are so challenging as it is. Subsequently, a meeting with the superintendent for the BPS community at large, where Henderson parents had hoped to be heard, was not held without notice of its cancellation. I did hear the superintendent, I believe, say earlier today with this 90-day plan that she had reached out to the Henderson Parent Council to sort of get some information. I don't know how quickly this plan came together, but I can say I used to be involved with the Parent Council for 5 years. In general, they don't have very many families who do participate. And I think it's gotten even worse with the interim leader because there's no collaboration with the Parent Council. Their concerns are dismissed and their initiatives are not elevated. I would recommend, as part of this plan that I was grateful to hear the superintendent has initiated, include a community-wide notification so that at least the families who have been speaking before the school committee could be involved, as well as many other parents who have concerns but have either felt frustrated or not heard. I also strongly recommend that a retired independent leader be hired to lead the Henderson out of this mess. A year and a half ago, I advocated for an interim leader who is independent after our principal was assaulted and knocked unconscious. Unfortunately, they picked a very young person who didn't have any experience as an administrator, and that person left for a family opportunity in another state. The new interim leader is a principal who is hired to cover for leaves, a medical leave or maternity leave, etc. And this person does not necessarily have a vested interest in inclusion or what we're doing at the Henderson. The Henderson needs a leader independent of the central office chain of command who is solely dedicated to bringing the Henderson out of this crisis. I just want to close, give me just a few more seconds. Society should be judged on how its most vulnerable members are treated. BPS, especially its leaders, are failing the children, family, staff, and teachers at the Henderson. Please step up and please get a truly independent person who can help us repair our school to the really wonderful place that it was previously. And I forgot to mention, I'm a Dorchester resident and a parent of a Henderson student. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sean Nelson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Sean Nelson, Boston resident. born and raised, taxpayer. I have come onto this meeting to address my concerns to the council. My also issue is that you are all appointed, not elected by the people. So you pretty much do the bidding of Michelle Wu, who typically does not listen to the people that elected her into office. Secondly, is another concern I have is these virtual meetings that you have, that they work for you and not for the people. As stated before, you guys have the ability to kick off people who don't agree with you, may say things that you're uncomfortable with, and boot them off very easily. I've seen that many times in other city council meetings and board school meetings across this country, where you don't want to hear from the parents or the taxpayers that you're accounted for, that pay your paychecks, so you can boot them off. While sitting on this meeting, listening to you talk, I wandered into your section and I saw that the chat has been disabled. So why are you disabling the chat and not allowing the community and other parents and other people who may share some thoughts and some ideas to meet and talk? Because you wish to silence people that disagree with you or the agenda of Michelle Wu. So I believe that should be taken off. The only people that should be on virtual is the public who are not able to actually come and meet you. You all should be in a one room all together, facing the people that you who do pay you, like their tax dollars, and confront them. Just like before, it's very cowardly that you're all behind these virtual screens and not able to know who and how many people are on here watching this. I've been on here since 5 o'clock, and I can see that it's very restrictive for us to see who else is on here unless you are talking right now. And that's very disturbing. It just shows you guys will talk about equity and inclusion only when it makes you look good. But when it comes to the public, well, we're elected, we're appointed, we don't really have to listen to you. We'll say all these good little words to make us look like we actually care, but you really don't. I can tell by your background screenshots, you're all at home, where you should be dressed in business casual and suits and facing the people. And should be able to answer simple questions. Secondly is school community safety. Just the other week, you had a radio disturbing information where a teacher locked out police when a suspect who stabbed another student outside blocked them from coming in to do their jobs, endangering all the other students in that school. You should have police officers, armed security in there helping you with these students and make sure they're safe. These teachers do not get paid enough to deal with some of these, unfortunately, misbehaved children. I've seen too many fights where teachers are getting knocked in the head, being slammed to the ground because some of these students have not been taught discipline at home and they bring their troubles into the school.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you.
Felicia's not in the meeting, so our next speaker will be Jess Manna.
Sorry, I was on mute. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jess Manna. I'm a Rosendale resident and Sumner parent. First, I'd like to thank the school committee for their virtual meetings. As a single parent, I would never be able to attend if the meetings were in person. Having virtual meetings increases access and is a more equitable way to hold meetings that impact such a large community. I have never seen a speaker be kicked off at the many virtual Boston school committees I have attended. As usual, I am here tonight to discuss the Sumner and Philbrook merger. First, as we have been discussing in the past, the community engagement has continued to be inauthentic. The recent community meeting for the Sumner and Philbrook merger was great, but it fell short of authentic community engagement. It was not advertised very far in advance. It was just advertised a few business days in advance because BPS refused to confirm the date, even though the date had been chosen weeks before. And because of that, the meeting participants were not representative of our community. 60% of our community is Spanish speaking, and there were only 2 people on the meeting that required interpretation services. During the meeting, we kind of dove into the details without zooming out and giving newcomers a proper overview of what decisions have already been made and what is being asked of the community. The meeting was also cut off fairly quickly and no follow-up has been sent And the meeting was cut off just as groups were getting into a productive discussion. And even though the groups asked for more time, that was not allowed. Most decisions regarding the merger have been made for us and not with us, and that continues to be true. Our Spanish-speaking community deserves a meeting in Spanish, which we have been promised multiple times, and that date has still not been set. And meeting minutes for the design team and the community meeting have not been distributed, which was also promised to us. At this point, it doesn't feel like BPS is invested in anything more than performative engagement with our community, which actually seems like more work than authentic engagement, but okay. And so all we can do is hope that BPS has learned from this process and will do better for the mergers that come after ours. We have several requests not related to community engagement, but given that our voices have not been heard on community engagement, we have to assume they will not be heard regarding the resources we feel our community needs after the merger. So we are here tonight asking the school committee to ask BPS to commit to some harm mitigation tactics prior to voting on the Sumner and Philbrook merger. We are not asking for no vote on the merger. We are asking for a commitment of quantifiable actions BPS will take to ensure our communities have the support we need, such as 3 to 4 social workers, at least 2 nurses, at least 2 family liaisons, and expanded administration to help with their transition, such as 2 principals for the first year, and the possibility of becoming a dual language school. As we have said from the beginning, we are in this for equity for all, so I would be negligent in that commitment if I did not mention what is happening to the Shaw and Taylor communities. They are being silenced with the threat that
Ms. Mafi. Thank you.
MSA funding if they don't quietly agree to the merger.
Ms. Mafi.
Is
Thank you. I'm afraid you're past your 3 minutes.
Yes,
Thank you.
and it's extremely unfair to the.
Thank you, Ms. Manna. Our next speaker is Bethany Mafi.
Hello, Chair Robinson and Ms. Skipper and the school council, school committee. Thank you again for the opportunity to hear us out. Madam Chair, I'm here today. I testified one of the families who testified last month from the Henderson, and I'm here again today to just to amplify the situation that's going on at the Henderson. I want to amplify Suleika's comments specifically about intentionality by the district and engaging families. Courtney Feely-Karp's comments specifically, what is the district's intention for leadership next year at the Henderson, and how will families be included? Michelle Carmel's comments about, I believe my daughter should be graduating from the Henderson, and I hope that, you know, I hope that school committee and the district can hear us. I didn't clearly write out a whole bunch of my thoughts. I really just wanted to be in the moment and say, we don't want to be here testifying every single month. We are at our wits' end. We don't know what to do or who to turn to. We come here. No one from school committee has reached out to any of the 5 families that testified last month. One of the families said that earlier, I'm so sorry I logged on late and I didn't get to hear it, but we heard that Ms. Skipper had reached out to the parent council. I might be mistaken. You did not say that. Okay, then I won't even address that. But we're waiting for someone to address us intentionally. So since we testified last month about the state of inclusion at our school, we are hearing stronger rumors about resource rooms. We're seeing job postings for sub-separate positions and resource room positions. We continue to ask leadership for clarity on what it's about. And we brought it to the district's attention several times. We're getting no satisfactory response. We even heard that the district visited the school after we testified last month, but families didn't hear anything about this. Families were not engaged. If that is the case, we don't even know if it's the case. We requested a plan for how the Henderson will be handled. No family has heard about that. We would love for school committee to intentionally reach out and specifically engage with the Henderson families, have conversations with the community rather than hear it here as testimony. Again, none of us want to be here every single month testifying this. We are desperate. That's why we're here over and over again. I do hope you can hear us. this time, I hope that you reach out to the community. I hope that you share plans with the community, with parent council, with parents, send us surveys, have meetings specifically for us. We'll all show up. Thank you for allowing us to testify again.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Shannon, is not signed into the meeting. So Chair Robinson, that concludes our speakers for general public comment.
Thank you.
Chair Robinson?
Yes.
Not typical, but I think because several of the parents from the Henderson had not had the opportunity to hear the update, I'm just going to ask Dr. Eccleston to come on, since he's been the person that's been helping to support this piece, and just actually be able to provide an update on several of the concerns that they expressed, because I don't want them to go home tonight without hearing that.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, members of the public, for raising a really important concern. A few things I just want to say sort of immediately, just to say at the top. The Henderson is committed to ensuring that the legacy of inclusion continues at the school. There are no plans. I want to be exceptionally clear on this. There are no plans for any type of substantially separate classrooms, any sort of resource rooms. These are errors in the postings of things relative to things that came out of the Office of Community Capital. And I am going to work with the school superintendent, with the school principal and members of OHC first thing tomorrow morning by 7:30 to resolve these issues, to make sure that this is very clear. I did go out to the Henderson after the last meeting. I did have an opportunity to meet with faculty. I did have an opportunity to meet with the school leader to ensure that the commitment to inclusion is there, both in strategy and investments, both now and into the future for the school. But we'll resolve these issues, and we will continue, obviously, to ensure that we are doing right by the school. I will also ensure, in partnership with Regional School Superintendent Jean Roundtree, that we meet with both the site council and the larger community to talk through these issues. I think there are some good suggestions that were proffered this evening from members of the community to move this forward. But we will be interested in doing this in two-way dialogue with the community to tackle the issues that are being raised, to make sure that we're making an effort of continuous improvement, making progress in those areas. And I'll take personal responsibility in working with members of the BPS team to make sure that.
And Dr. Eccleston, I did share in my report the additional resources that we are allocating to be able to address some of the gaps that we're seeing at the Henderson. So I don't know if you want to just quickly share a few of those, since some of the parents didn't get to hear that.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have that. I was just coming from a Mather community meeting, so I don't have that information top of mind, but there are a number of significant investments that I made in the FY24 budget to support inclusion. I'd be happy to ensure that I'm prepared to have that conversation with the community, and you feel free to have those details if you have them in front of you.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, school psychologist, I think, we spoke about special education administrator relative to inclusion, family liaison, given the lower and the upper campus. From a material standpoint, a librarian and library, I believe, at the upper with materials, and at the lower campus, additional materials for a literacy room. I believe an adjustment counselor, and then the couple of positions which sound like they were posted incorrectly, which would support inclusion, but were posted as resource room. So there's also, along with the plan of support and training, I can also say that the Henderson is one of the schools that we will be working in partnership with the city, with AIR dollars, to provide additional clinical support and trauma-informed training. Henderson is one of those schools. So I think that the parent voice has been important. I think that the Hendersons had a long journey for the last couple of years And, it's on us as the district to help support and bring some stability to it, with Dr. Eccleston, with Jean Roundtree in support. And so we'll work to get that communication out to parents now that the plan has been finalized, and then offer an opportunity to be able to meet with parents as well. Thank you, Dr. Eccleston, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Thank you, Dr. Eccleston, for coming on. And thank you to those of you who spoke this evening and shared your perspectives. Your testimony is very important to us. We have 5 action items this evening. 3 collective bargaining agreements with the Boston School Police Superior Officers Federation and lunch hour monitors, and 2 fiscal year 23 supplemental appropriation requests to support the cost of those agreements. You'll recall that last meeting, Labor Relations Director Jeremiah Hassan presented highlights of these agreements to the school committee. I'll now turn it over to the superintendent for final comments.
Thank you, Chair. We're very proud of continuing to work to bring our labor contracts in line, to recognize the hard work of all of the staff that work in BPS and have over the pandemic. This is a further step toward bringing the 14 units that were out back into compliance of timeline, but also I think going forward so that we're now staggered and actually really work across the table with labor in a creative way for how to be able to best support our schools and our students. So I want to thank Jeremiah and his team for that support and that hard work. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jeremiah.
Superintendent, thank you for the kind words. We appreciate your support as always. Committee members, we also appreciate your support. And I just publicly want to thank the bargaining teams for both the superior officers and the lunch hour monitors on working together and getting these deals done. We're optimistic both about these agreements and our relationship moving forward with these groups. I'll turn it to the committee if you have any questions. If not, I just reiterate our recommendation to vote in favor of these agreements and the supplemental appropriation requests needed to fund them in the fiscal year of 2023.
Thank you. I'll now open it up to the committee for any final questions, comments. None? No one? Dr. Alkins?
I just want to echo the sentiments that this is great progress, I would say, like along these lines, is to make our contracts current. And in some ways, it's almost, not even almost, it's disconcerting to say that like we have to keep things current in this way. But I'm happy that we are able to do this. That said, I think it'd be important for me to say that it shouldn't stop here as we're looking at the number of contracts in terms of being able to make sure that the people that are working in BPS are being paid adequately and commensurate with the cost of living that it takes to be in a city like Boston. So I think this is also a charge for us to continue advocacy at the level of the city to invest more for the staff of BPS, and as such that translates into a better educational experience. So thank you all for the work that y'all are doing.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement for successor collective bargaining agreement between the Boston School Police Superior Officers Federation and the school committee for the period July 1, 2020 through June 30, 2021 as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Ms. Sullivan, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Alkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cadet Hernandez, Ms. Lopera, Ms. Polanco Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Tran, Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes,
Motion is approved unanimously.
thank you. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement for the successor collective bargaining agreement between the Boston School Police Superior Officers and Federation and the Boston School Committee for the period July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2024, as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Ms. Sullivan, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Alkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cadet Hernandez, Ms. Lopera, Ms. Polanco Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Tran, Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion is approved unanimously.
thank you. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 23 supplemental appropriation request in the amount of $68,769 to support the memorandum of agreement for successor collective bargaining agreement for the period July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2024 between the Boston School Police Superior Officers Federation and the Boston School Committee as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Ms. Sullivan, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Alkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cadet Hernandez, Ms. Lopera, Ms. Polanco Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Tran, Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes,
The motion is approved unanimously.
thank you. I will now entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement for successor collective bargaining agreement between the lunch hour monitors, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME 93, and the Boston School Committee for the period September 1, 2020 through August 31, 2023, as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Ms. Sullivan, please call the roll.
Dr. Alkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cadet Hernandez, Ms. Lopera, Ms. Polanco Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Tran, Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes,
The motion is approved unanimously.
thank you. And finally, I will now entertain a motion to approve fiscal year 23 supplemental appropriation request in the amount of $206,006 to support the memorandum of agreement for successor collective bargaining agreement between the lunch hour monitors, AFSCME 93, and the Boston School Committee for the period September 1, 2020 through August 31, 2023, as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or objection to the motion? Ms. Sullivan, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Alkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cadet Hernandez, Ms. Lopera, Ms. Polanco Garcia,
Yes.
Mr. Tran, Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Ms. Robinson.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion is approved unanimously.
thank you. Our first and only report this evening is a Transformation Schools update. Before I turn it over to Mike Saban, Executive Director of School Transformation, I will invite the superintendent to give introductory remarks. I'd also like to remind everyone to please speak at a slower pace to assist our interpreters. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief, but this is critical work. When we think about the transformation schools, it's almost like a small part of the district. And so really the team under Mike's leadership under the schools division, I think has done an incredible job this year leveraging the regional network model, bringing resources into the transformation schools. And I think, as you'll see from the presentation tonight, there's certain data markers that are showing progress. Those markers will obviously expand as time goes on, and we get, MCAS results and other kinds of assessments. But I think in general, what we're seeing is concentrating resource and really focusing on tier 1 instruction practices in those transformation schools with the appropriate resources is in, and intentionality around chronic absenteeism. These are the things that are coming to bear to create positive results for our students. So I know Mike and his team have done just an incredible job preparing for tonight. They're very proud of the work, as they should be. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Director Saban.
Thanks so much, Superintendent Skipper, Chair Robinson, and school committee members. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share an update on BPS transformation schools. So my message today is this. Thanks to the hard work of our school leaders and of course our students and families and our educators, we are seeing multiple signs of progress in our transformation schools. We also see ongoing and urgent needs, and we're pulling together plans and resources to keep the improvement going. The format of today's presentation illustrates the continuous improvement approach used by all of our schools. And we can go to the next slide. Targets and improvement strategies are set in 3 priority areas: equitable literacy, climate and culture, and attendance. Progress monitoring and strategic adjustments continue throughout the year. Just as each school leader presents and shares their quality school plan update with their community, I'm happy to share a quarterly update for the whole network of transformation schools in these 3 areas. So before we start, we should review some vocabulary. Next slide, please. Transformation is a Boston Public Schools term given to any school rated below the 10th percentile in the Department of Education accountability system. That percentile is calculated for each school through a formula that includes MCAS scores, MCAS growth, access scores, and attendance. And for high schools, mass core completion and graduation rate. Transformation schools may be added annually, and 4 new schools are actually being added now based on their 2022 percentile. With the addition of Perkins, Tobin, Snowden, and BCLA McCormick schools, there are now 32 BPS transformation schools. And the full list is provided in the appendix. The demographics summary on this slide, which you have seen before and is from October data, reinforces that our transformation schools educate a larger percentage of low-income students, a larger percentage of students with disabilities, and a larger percentage of multilingual learners than our non-transformation schools. Our transformation schools also educate a significantly higher percentage of Black and Latinx students. These are very important schools. So we'll move now to updates in the 3 priority areas. After I present priority 1, equitable literacy, and priority 2, climate and culture, Greenwood K-8 dual language school principal Antonelli Mejia will bring our improvement efforts to life with some school level examples. So priority 1 is equitable literacy. I have shared data before that shows an achievement gap between transformation schools and non-transformation schools. The gap starts in kindergarten and continues through the grade levels. Addressing this literacy gap is an urgent district priority. We are working toward improved literacy every day in every school by implementing high-quality curriculum, supporting teachers with instructional coaching and professional development, and supporting students with tiered instruction and expanded opportunities for inclusion. So, are we making progress on priority one? Our classroom observation data from our instructional rounds says that we are. During our quarterly rounds, teams of school and district staff visit classrooms together, observing teaching and learning in action. We observe students reading, student writing, student discourse, looking for evidence of engagement with grade level standards and with complex and enabling text. So far this year, teams of observers have visited over 1,100 classrooms in transformation schools. 1,100 classrooms is a lot. We're very proud that our improvement efforts in the transformation network and the whole district are rooted in the actual classroom. Excuse me. This graph in front of you shows steady progress over the course of the year in most areas of equitable literacy. We feel confident that this steady shift in instructional practice will translate into improved student learning. The second priority area relates to school climate and culture. Last quarter, we shared teacher surveys and observed an increase in positive teacher ratings of professional learning and professional relationships. This quarter, I will share some promising data from our student surveys. We give student surveys twice per year, and these surveys are one way that student voice informs our improvement efforts. Grade 3 to 5 student surveys from the late fall show a strong student sense of belonging and engagement in our transformation schools, similar to non-transformation schools. One area for concern, our elementary transformation school students report higher levels of safety worry than other students. Student survey responses from secondary school students have a much lower overall positive response rate for all students across the district, as you can see. Compared to non-transformation schools, transformation school students actually report a higher level of classroom engagement and a similar sense of school belonging. Those are perhaps unexpected positives. But again, our transformation school students share greater concerns about school safety. School safety is clearly an area for further attention and action. So before moving on to our attendance priority, I would like to introduce Antonelli Mejia, the wonderful first-year principal of the Greenwood K-8 dual language school. We are all very excited about the work Antonelli and his team are doing at the Greenwood. Antonelli?
Good evening, everybody. I don't think I can put my video on. Can you see me? Good evening, everyone, and members of the school committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here in this space to share a little bit about the work that we're doing here, excuse me, at Dese at Greenwood. My name is Antonelli Mejia, and I am the first principal. Before that, I am also a student, a former BPS student, and I have served families and students in many capacities, as a teacher, as a community field coordinator, a counselor, and an assistant principal at the Mario Humana School. As a community, we at the Greenwood understand that transformation takes time, and yet the work that needs to be done, it is very urgent. So we have a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of risk. as we navigate what is the right thing to do for our students. This belief centered our work since the very beginning of the year, when we adopted the culture of achievement research from Dr. Teresa Perry. This work really pushes us to build a culture where all the students, especially students of color who have been historically marginalized, can have access to high quality learning opportunities every day. We can go to the next slide. In order to embark in this journey, we knew that there was a lot of capacity building that we, the adults, had to do. This work pushes us to adjust our practices and unlearn traditional pedagogy that may not have been conducive to meeting the diverse needs of our students. As we know, transformation requires us to face both technical and adaptive challenges. We've made a lot of intentional movements to create learning conditions to collaborate. And as you can see in the data, we have made some improvements toward our professional learning goal this year. Learning is a part of our cycle of improvement, and most of this learning has been focused on the consistent implementation of a fully curriculum for literacy across all grade levels. This has created common language and expectation for what strong literacy instruction should look like at our school. Additionally, we were able to meet and in some grades exceed our target around classroom rigorous expectations and the sense of belonging for our students. While they continue to be priority areas in our school, we are proud of the work that is happening and the small wins that we can celebrate today. We can go to the next slide. Priority 1 in our improvement plan, it's centered in improving our Tier 1 instruction to teach all the students, no matter the language they speak or their learning demands. Our goal is to build students' biliteracy skills and the functions of language in each English and Spanish. While this data shows that students are performing below grade level expectations in first and second grade, it is important to know that this is the first year that this cohort of first graders is learning English literacy explicitly, and that this year's second graders did not receive English explicitly last year. This was due because of a previous language model. This year, we shifted some aspect of our language model to ensure that students were receiving explicit language in both languages. And we are starting to see some progress between the beginning and the year, as you can see. I wanted to highlight the tremendous growth that our kindergarten students made in Spanish as they exceeded expectations with an increase of 28%. Similarly, our second grader students, they met the projected target in the mid-year assessment. Our work to support students in the second grade remains a priority, especially to those students who are new to the country, to make sure that they receive the supports that they need to be successful. Consistency in our school practices has led to academic success in our middle school as well. As you can see, all of our students in middle school exceeded the assessment target in English in the mid-year. And the students in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade exceeded those expectations in the Spanish as well. This is a result of all the hard work, all the effort, extra hours that our teachers are putting into planning and improving their Tier 1 instruction, but also the collaboration of families and all the way that students are also demonstrating. We are proud of the progress that we're seeing, and we remain hopeful that we will continue to transform and counter the narrative that society has put in our students. We believe that our students are so much more than these scores, and we will continue to find ways to highlight the different aspects our community is transforming, in addition to the improvement in test performance. As a first-year principal, this has now been an easy journey, but I have an amazing team and a great community of educators who come each and every day committed to maintain the promise that we make to all of our families every day. That is to keep their child safe and learning in a positive and welcoming environment. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our academic superintendent, Natalie Ake, and the folks at the District Transformation Division, because they have provided us with a lot of support this year. Personally, I think that the shift that they made into the regional supports model has made a huge difference, and it will continue to support our district in moving towards a more inclusive and more cohesive district amongst all the schools. We are really excited because we're already seeing some small wins in the achievement of our students, but this is just the beginning, and we have a lot of learning that is ahead of us. So I hope I can come back and share that with you in the future as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Antonelli. I think we can hear in your voice that it's hard work being a first-year principal. And we're so excited to watch the growth that you and your team have already launched so far this year. So back to our 3 priorities. Priority 3 is attendance, specifically the goal of reducing chronic absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is an attendance level below 90% or 18 days absent in a given school year. As you heard from Brian Mark's presentation at the last school committee meeting, we are seeing some progress in reducing high chronic absenteeism rates in our transformation schools. Next slide, please. This chart summarizes the situation with chronic absenteeism. Now remember, lower bars are better in the case of chronic absenteeism. The pair of bars on the left show that the rate of chronic absenteeism in non-transformation schools was lower this year and last year than the rate in transformation schools, the bars on the right. We can see, however, in the right-hand bars that the improvement in chronic absenteeism in transformation schools from last year to this year has been 5 percentage points, dropping from 50 to 45% of students in comparison to a 2-point drop in non-transformation schools. This is an early sign of progress, but both rates are too high. And of course, we need to keep improving. As Brian also mentioned a few weeks ago, it is important to pause and celebrate some remarkable improvements in certain schools. King, Lee K-8, Ellis, Higginson Lewis, and Blackstone have all shown a decrease in absenteeism over the past year of more than 10 percentage points. That is a lot. 7 of our transformation schools have chronic absenteeism rates lower than the average of non-transformation schools. Philbrick, Orchard Gardens, Umana, Frederick, Chittick, Grew, and Mason. That's the result of a lot of hard work at those schools. As with student literacy, we have proud examples of excellence and improvement within the transformation network. So far, this presentation has summarized the performance of our transformation schools in their 3 priority areas. And one aspect of our transformation office mission is to support each individual school in implementing these quality school plan priorities for their school. Another part, however, of the transformation office mission is to strengthen central office supports for all high-need schools. We talked in the fall, and you have heard throughout the year about the regional structure and how that structure is providing improved support to schools. Today, I want to focus on another strategy, our partnership with the Office of Human Capital to support recruitment and hiring during a very challenging labor market. We have been studying vacancy patterns in the district and can see that each year we have certain schools with high numbers of vacancies. It turns out that these vacancies are somewhat concentrated in transformation schools. This table of the number of vacancies for next year shows that 15 of the 20 BPS schools with the most posted job vacancies for next year are transformation schools. The Office of Human Resources, the Division of Schools, and the Transformation Office are collaborating to provide a range of extra supports for recruitment and hiring in transformation schools. Strategies have included the early posting of certain positions, direct Office of Human Capital assistance in teacher license renewal, the use of TAG grant funds to provide certain schools with hiring help, and a range of ongoing efforts to match candidates with transformation schools. So how's it going? OHC has developed an outstanding tracking dashboard so we can track hiring in real time on a daily basis. Progress is slow, but steady. As of April 3rd, as shown on this slide, approximately 17% of transformation school vacancies had a name submitted for hire. District-wide, the percentage was 18%. I checked the dashboard today, and we are up to 24% of jobs filled or submitted for hire in transformation schools from 17% last week. Nothing is more important than getting the best possible educators into our high-need schools, and we look forward to continuing this partnership with OHC around recruitment and hiring. So there is so much more information I would love to share, but that is enough for tonight. There's an appendix to your slide deck with some additional details. This concludes the presentation, and we welcome your questions and comments.
Thank you, Mr. Sabin, and also Mr. Mejia. Thank you very much for your presentation. I'd like to open it up now to committee for questions. Mr. O'Neill.
Sure, I'll go a little out of turn if that's okay with Dr. I was waiting for Dr. Elkins and Ms. Polenko Garcia, but thank you both for the presentation. And I'm particularly interested in the chronic absenteeism data and the work that's been done. And we did discuss it a bit at the last meeting when we were looking at it overall, but you know, when I have a school principal here, Mr. Mejia, and thank you. And by the way, what school did you attend as a BPS student? I'd love to hear that whole history.
Brighton High School.
Oh, Brighton High School. Excellent. Great. So I love that. And, you know, all the different roles that you had. So thank you for sharing that. So I'm interested to hear, I didn't notice the Sarah Greenwood on the list of attendance. You know, what the attendance there, but I'm interested in hearing from you as a school leader. What is working now? What were the, you know, what was the low-hanging fruit that you were able to do to help move the needle? And then what are the real challenges to really make a substantial difference in chronic absenteeism, even to get to the level of the non-transformational schools? As Mr. Sabin said, we still have a long way to go. Those numbers are way too high because, let's face it, that is such a, if the students aren't in the classroom, if we haven't transported them there safely, if it's not a clean, safe school, if they're not fed, the social emotional health, you know, all of those contribute to a student learning, being in the best place to learn, right? And issue number one is having them go to school. So help me out, please, Mr. Mejia, Principal Mejia, what has worked, right? What was the low-hanging fruit? And then what are the real challenges in front of you? And maybe Mr. Sabin, you could then chime in with, you know, how we're thinking about those more systemic challenges.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill, and I apologize for my voice. I'm losing my voice. So I think in terms of the work that we've done here around attendance, the implementation of clear systems and routines that have led to partnership with families was something that has been very consistent. We created an attendance team that is now conducting more consistent meetings with families. We are thinking about what are some of those additional challenges, but also having even parent meetings that are just targeted for those attendance. I think that the main challenge is that, unfortunately, the students, at least in our school, that remained chronic absent are the students that already have a history, right? So we continue to collaborate with the district support as well, because we are able to collaborate with the families to make some accommodations or provide additional support, such as a lot of our students experiencing homelessness, and they do have to go to a shelter that is far away, and that is a challenge. And oftentimes they do need to be absent for a few days, and that adds up to the chronic absenteeism data in that piece, right? But I think that the attendance team has created additional resources for those families. And what we've done is that we've sort of created a system so that our family liaison also sits in that attendance meeting so that they can collaborate with families, myself, the assistant principal, even the nurse, so that we have more information around what are the motives for those absences to make sure that we know how to support the families. I think that is one of the areas that we continue to prioritize, because we see that from last year to now, our numbers, I think, have decreased, but not to the extent that we would want it to see as well.
Thank you, that's helpful.
And I'd love to just add on a little bit, just looking at the data itself. Greenwood has gone from 39% down to 35%. So they have shown significant improvement from that February to February. And the non-transformation school average is 33. So they're getting close. And I think what Antonelli described to you is the strategy we want schools to be using. They have a team in place that's monitoring attendance on a daily basis. They're creating, strong relationships with students and families to emphasize the importance of attendance. They're creating incentives for students to come. They're doing outreach when students don't come. And then they're continually monitoring how it's going and implementing new experiments and new strategies. All across the country, we know this is a really tough problem to take on. In the K-8 schools, we've seen that 18 of the 19 schools you may have seen in the appendix of the transformation schools have improved. So I think the strategies are working well in the lower grades. It appears to be harder in the secondary schools. Only 5 of the 9 are ahead of last year. So it seems that the younger students are bouncing back better from this change in attendance habit. It's more of a challenge with the older students.
Mr. Saban, that's exactly what I was going to ask as a follow-up. How did that number of effectively a third of our students district-wide being chronically absent, how does that compare, number one, to pre-pandemic? And number two, how is that compared to other large districts across the country? Are they seeing higher numbers, lower numbers, and what are some, and I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I ran out of my 5 minutes, so I'm glad to hold that to a follow-up round.
I can't speak specifically to the national numbers, though I know they're much lower, but compared to Boston pre-COVID, it's significantly higher. So the averages were around 15 to 20% chronically absent, and now we're seeing numbers in the 30s. So it's not double, but it's a good 50% higher. And it's going to, I think we all know that it's going to take a lot of work to work that back down, but we are seeing movement in the direction we want to go. It just takes a lot of work.
Yeah, Chair, I was just going to add that this was a major conversation at the Council of Great City Schools among the superintendents. Every district is struggling with this. and they're struggling, particularly at the secondary level. With how to re-engage students. Some students are, I think the mental health component that we're seeing at the secondary level, especially with high rates of mental health depression, expresses itself with the disengagement. Working is another for many of our secondary students. So there's lots of layers to it, but every district was struggling with this as we had that conversation, all trying very unique things, as are we, to incentivize, to address the mental health needs, most importantly, to keep track and to recognize when students aren't there, to do that outreach to families, home visits. It really is a layered menu, of how we're going to continue to bring the numbers down. My recollection, and I'll get the exact figure, but my recollection is here in Boston, we ranged like between 20 and 26% in given years for the chronic absenteeism, which, again, is still really high, particularly because some schools go well above that. I think the other complicating factor on the attendance piece is that with COVID post-pandemic, we do ask parents to keep kids home when they're sick, or when they're having symptoms. And so it's, to Director Sabin's point, I think it's really trying to differentiate between students who might be staying home for those reasons or because of exposures or things like that, versus students who are disengaged. And that's what's driving the chronic absenteeism. And that's really where we have to come up with the broad menu of how to best engage our young people and families.
Ms. Polanco Garcia.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Es interesante ver en el slide número 3, creo que en el número 3, ellos están hablando de las escuelas que están saliendo de transformación.
Okay, I think it's important to mention, I think it's on the slide number 3, where you were talking about the schools who are getting out of the transformation schools.
Ajá, entonces mi pregunta es, ellos hicieron, el señor Sabin decía que ellos habían tenido 3 procesos para poder trabajar con estas escuelas de transformación, ¿verdad?
And my question now is that I know Mr. Sabin mentioned that there were 3 processes in place to work around this, right?
Entonces, ¿qué hicieron ellos para poder lograr que estas escuelas, que ofrecieron estas escuelas, porque es importante que los padres y toda la comunidad sepan, qué hizo el distrito para poder lograr que estas escuelas casi, como dice el slide número 3, estén saliendo de transformación?
So now my question is, what did you do or what did you offer these schools so that parents and community knows that what the district is doing, so these schools that are almost out of the level of transformation schools?
Thank you for that question and for noticing those 4 schools on the right-hand side of slide 3.
The world of science cares about you. Eureka! We found it. With the tools of science, we have invented, yes, hand sanitizer. But not just any hand sanitizer. This hand sanitizer was developed and approved by the Dark One himself. Here are a few of the things our product can bring you.
Uostarosta.
Huh,
Uostarosta.
what's he doing? Come on. That's odd. I'm sure I can fix it. I think.
Ho ho ho.
It is Photoshop, but it has to be. It is Photoshop, but it has to be. It is Photoshop, but it has to be.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
A lie is a lie, and it don't matter how many dumb sheeple believe it. And the truth is the truth, hiding right out in plain sight, and still people don't see it. Man, this shit got me heated, and I won't stop till the elite are being defeated. They keep us deceived about everything that we think, and they keep it a secret. What we're taught is not conducive with reality. Big bang, evolution, and there's gravity. I tell the truth, and then these motherfuckers laugh at me, telling me the earth is Photoshop because it has to be. Most people accept the deception happily, but what they're doing to us all is a tragedy. God created the heavens and the earth in a verse, but we're living in a famous on the galaxy. They say we're monkeys on a ball flying through outer space, but there's no proof, it seems to have vanished without a trace. NASA and other agencies falling down from grace. You can take that bullshit pseudoscience and get out my face. I'm the antisocial type, you're a government prototype. That's why you make it a point to tell me that I'm crazy every time you're angry, cause you know I'm right. I'm standing outside the house of cards about to watch it fall. No more living on a cartoon ball. Horizon means horizontal. Indoctrination is awful because you're taught the globe model. Ever since y'all could crawl, we follow rapists and murderers, liars, thieves, and sun worshippers, saying we can't see curvature cause we're all too small. And though it's never been proven, they say we're ripping and shooting. The earth is spinning and moving. Oh no, no, not at all. It's a criminal enterprise where deception intensifies. Assholes got us all living like on a cartoon ball.
It is Photoshop, but it has to be.
What you're seeing here is a mirage.
They say that we went to the moon 6 times, but pure BS is the way that smelled. Now they're telling us that we can't even leave the planet because of the Van Allen radiation belt. Yeah, okay, sure. NASA, what you lying for? You lying now, you lied before. I can't take this anymore. The only thing they took to space was your imagination. Fake aliens are coming, now they have you waiting. We need to do something about it, no procrastination. Trying to cause the masses to awaken, that's the path I'm taking. But you can see if you check all the percentages, so many people having cognitive dissonance. But that's what happens at the loss of your innocence. Then you get involved with all of this wickedness. They try to do all the humans this way. So are they just idiots? Who is to say? Conditioned by the television, it makes your decisions, opinions, and you just obey. Stuck in the material domain of Satan, where everything in each and every day is pagan. Mandela effect, cause the game is changing. People waking up and now the cage is shaking. The earth is flat, and that is a universal fact. If it isn't that, then tell me where the fuck the curve is at. They tell us that we can't see it because we're all too small, and now we're spinning on a cartoon ball. Horizon means horizontal. Indoctrination is awful because you're taught the globe model. Ever since y'all could crawl, we follow rapists and murderers, liars, thieves, and sun worshippers, saying we can't see curvature cause we're all too small. And though it's never been proven, they say we're ripping and shooting. The earth is spinning and moving. Oh no, no, not at all. It's a criminal enterprise where deception intensifies. Assholes got us all living like on a cartoon ball.
It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison for your mind.
It is Photoshop,
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.